Hello guys, we are back with the third edition of Uzbekistan Chess Cup 2026. So this is the round where you will have an interesting endgame lesson between these two players. We have the first contender for the first place, Vokhidov Shamsiddin, who is playing with Jan Nepomniachtchi, the best player from Russia. So let's see what happened in this game, but I think you will love it. And after the game, we need to check out the standings, so you guys will be in touch who is the first one. We have Vokhidov with the white pieces open the game with e4. We have c5. Jan is using his famous weapon, the Sicilian. We have knight to f3 and pawn to d6. So this is the standard stuff. And here Vokhidov goes for the Canal attack of the Sicilian. And in this position, you can play three moves which come to mind are knight to d7. You can play knight to c6 or bishop to d7. This is how this line is usually played, but we have knight to d7 in this game. And now the immediate d4, you attack the center and you need to capture it. C takes on d4 and knight captures on d4. Knight to f6, attacking the e4 pawn, but this is all have been played before. You can castle the king, and if you're new in chess, you can't grab this pawn. You can, but you can't, because white gets a lot of activity for the missed pawn, and this would be, those players knew that. So here in this position, not g6, so in this position here, Jan continues the game with g6. We have rook to e1, nicely putting the rook towards that black king, bishop to g7, so fianchettoing the bishop, and bishop retreats back to f1. We have knight to c5. As you can see, now the threat is to capture the pawn, because the pawn is attacked twice. And here Vokhidov calmly defends with f3. We have castles by Jan, and bishop to e3, nicely defending the knight. If maybe somehow you move this knight and the queen goes to b6, it could get very annoying. This is these are the positions where when I played the Sicilian, I lost many games with this queen to b6 idea, and then the knight jumped to g4, but the pawn was on f2, and the knight jumped to g4, and somehow they always get me in trouble. But not Vokhidov and Jan. And here we're going to follow a game which was played in 2022. Here in this position, this game was played between Schubel and Vincent Keimer in Chess Olympiad 2022 in Chennai. And the game continued with knight to e6. Here we saw Schubel played c4 and Keimer captured the knight. We have bishop captures and bishop to e6, eyeing that pawn, but for now the pawn is nicely defended. Schubel continued the game with knight to c3, and Keimer played queen to a5. We have knight to d5 and bishop captures. E captures and rook from f to e8. And later, Keimer won that game with black very nicely. But in this actual game, if we go back in this position, Jan continued the game with d5, but it was interesting that Keimer's move knight to e6 is the right way to go. And now we have e5, pushing the pawn and attacking the f6 knight. Knight goes to e8 and even f4 now. So Vokhidov is clearly better in this position. And now we have f6 trying to attack the center. Knight jumps back to f3, and we have b6 now. Maybe securing and defending this knight. Maybe Nepo will continue with bishop to b7. We have knight to c3, attacking this pawn, the d5 pawn, and we have knight jumps to c7. And if you look closely at this position here, Nepo's pieces are not well coordinated, are not well placed, but we will see what happens. We have h3 by Vokhidov, and like we expected, bishop to b7. And now in this position, this is the first critical moment, because here Vokhidov captures the pawn. And in this position, you need to recapture with the bishop. This was the right way to go, because you need to keep this long diagonal open so you can get a lot of activity and maybe attack, push those pawns, and have a very nice game. But in the game, we have e takes on f6, which looks like a natural move to play, but here Vokhidov has a very nice idea, and he sacrifices a pawn because this bishop stays locked in, and here if Jan captures the pawn, you will get you'll need to figure it out how to get this bishop in the game. So of course Jan knows this, and he plays queen to d7, eyeing that pawn. But now first b4, Zwischenzug attacking the c5 knight from f to a6. We have f takes on g6 and h takes on g6, and now defending the b4 pawn with a3, rook from a to e8, eyeing that bishop, and queen to d2 nicely defends everything. Knight to b8, trying to remaneuver the knight, and rook from a to d1, nicely having a lot of firepower on the d file. We have knight to c6. Those knights are doing a lot of maneuvering. We have bishop to c4. You can't grab the bishop. I know you see it, because your queen would hang, so you need to be very careful. And now we have knight to e5, trying to trade some pieces. We have knight captures and f takes on e5. So here Nepo has got an isolated pawn, an isolated g-pawn, and Nepo has got a very nice center. But let's see what happened in this game. We have knight captures on d5, bishop captures on d5, and bishop captures on d5, queen captures on d5, queen captures, knight captures, and rook captures on d5, and rook to c8. We have Nepo is attacking the c2 pawn, so you need to defend it, and we have rook to e2, and now it's also the time. So far, guys, if you're enjoying, feel free to subscribe to my channel so you don't miss any of my future chess videos. Thank you for that, really appreciate it. Now let's get back to the game. Now, in this position, here we need to explore one quick line. Here in the game, rook to c4 was played, but it was actually much stronger to continue the game with rook to c4. And here the idea is, if, let's say, for example, if white wants to go after the g6 pawn, you continue with rook to f6. And even if white gives a check, you play rook to f8. You go back, and after rook to d6, you can repeat moves. And even if, let's say, for example, white goes after the e5 pawn, you play rook to f8. And after bishop to c1, trying to remaneuver the bishop maybe to b2 square, you play rook from f to c8. You double the rooks on the c file. You're going to capture the c2 pawn, and after bishop goes to b2, you first capture the pawn, rook captures, and rook captures. Rook captures and bishop captures on e5, bishop captures on e5, and rook captures on e5. Rook to c3, eyeing that a3 pawn, and As you can see, white would probably push the pawn. Everything is fine. The position would be equal, but in the actual game, we have rook to c4. And now rook goes to d6. Vokhidov attacks the g6 pawn. We have rook goes to f6, and first rook d8 we check. Rook goes back to f8, and rook from e to d2. Doubling the rooks on the d file, we have rook to c3, attacking the bishop and the a3 pawn. So now you need to react, and rook from 8 to d3 defends everything, and rook from f to c8, doubling the rooks. And now we have a4. And I'm really thinking about the position is equal. I'm really thinking about putting this position on a thumbnail, because now I'm going to question you guys. What would you play here if you had the black pieces to stay in the game, to get some sort of an activity? What would you play here? What is the move that really comes to your mind in this position? Well, the move is not so simple to find, but and the idea behind it, but it actually is pawn to e4. You attack the rook, and I'm going to show you the best line for white. If white gives a check on d8, you first capture the rook, and rook captures on d8. King goes to h7, and now this bishop is hanging, so I need to defend it. King to f2, and now black captures on c2. We would see something like rook goes back to d2 and rook to c4, eyeing that b4 pawn. So we would see something like a5, and now rook captures on b4, and now pushing the pawn all the way to a6. Rook to a4, going after the a6 pawn, but now a very nice move by white. You play rook to d7. You're eyeing that a7 pawn and the bishop, and here black needs to continue with b5, pushing the pawn. But if black captures the pawn, this is a big blunder, because I know you see it. It's a very nasty pin. This bishop is pinned, and you lose a piece now. Even if you give a check, king goes to g3, and let's say, for example, g5, now you lose a bishop. And here you need to go to h6 square, and even this is for all the beginners players. If you go to g8, you even lose a rook, because this comes with check, and you need to move the king, and you even lose the rook. So this would be catastrophic. But in the actual game here, Nepo played bishop to f8, and he's eyeing that pawn, but this move is too slow. And we're going to look why this move is too slow. First, we have b5 by Vokhidov, defending the pawn, pushing the pawn, and defending the pawn, but now e4. Now Nepo finds this move, but here we're going to look at the best defense that black has in this position. Here, black needs to capture the rook. This position is much different, and after rook captures the pawn, you play rook to c7. You need to defend your 7th rank, and the point is that just a second. The point is that after rook goes to d5, you need to find king goes to f7, and this position now holds. And even if white captures on e5, now you capture on c2 square. Let we go back. After this move, if you guys thought about capturing the pawn, I'm going to show you this line because it's very interesting. Here, white would continue with rook to d8. He would pin this bishop, and now you need to unpin, otherwise you can lose a piece. Rook to f7. Now white would play rook to d7. This is with check. King goes to e6, and white would capture the a7 pawn, and after rook goes to b2, which is the best defense, you just capture on b6, and white is winning this game. White has got two connected passed pawns, which will start marching forward, and the position is completely losing for black. So this was one very interesting line, but here Nepo missed it. He played e4, and now we have rook captures on e3, rook captures on e3, and king to f2, defending the e3 bishop. And another mistake by Jan, bishop to e7. This move now gets Jan into the losing position. Now we have rook goes to d7, attacking both the bishop and the a7 pawn. And what do you do now? Here Jan tried bishop to h4. This is with check, but Vokhidov calculates this precisely, and he plays g3. And now we're going to explore the best defense that black has in this position, which I'm going to show you. It's one long line, but it doesn't hold. Let's say, for example, bishop goes to f6. Here, white would first capture the a7 pawn. Rook captures on c2, king goes to f1, and rook to c3, eyeing the bishop. The bishop would capture the b6 pawn. Rook goes to b3. Rook goes behind the passed pawn, and rook to b7. We would see something like bishop to c3, and now even a5, pushing the pawn. And rook captures on b5, a6. Now, two squares away from promotion. Rook delivers check on f5. We have king goes to e2, and rook goes to f8, defending the 8th rank. We have even a7 now. The threat is to play a rook to b8, so you need to prevent it. Bishop to e5 prevents rook from coming to that b8 square. And now we have even g4. First pushing the pawn, defends everything. We have g5, stopping any expansion. And now a very nice plan for white. Rook to d7. The idea is you will put the rook on that d8 square, and you will force a rook trade, captures, bishop captures, and then you will promote your pawn because the promotion is on a light square. So here the engine suggests bishop to b2, but this is pointless. Rook d8, we have captures and captures. Bishop to c1, the engine is playing something, but this is queen, and here black would probably resign. After g3, we saw bishop captures on g3, rook captures on g3, rook captures on e3, and king goes to g4. We have rook to f3 trying to push the pawn, but here Vokhidov captures on a7. We have king goes to f8, and we have a5 now. Rook goes to f6, and now we have a takes on b6, and rook captures on b6. And c4 defending the pawn, and it was also in this position on move 45 that Ion Nepomniachtchi resigned the game, because there is no defense against those two passed pawns. We can explore the best line that Ion has, is to play some sort of counterplay with rook to e6, trying to push the pawn and get a queen. Here Vokhidov would continue the game with rook to a1, stopping this e4 pawn. First you need to capture this pawn, and then you will trade rooks and promote one of those pawns. We would see something like king goes to e8, king goes to f4 after the pawn, pawn to e3, and rook on e1. Now you will capture this pawn. We would see g5 with check, king goes to f3, and king goes to d7. Rook captures on e3, and rook to f6 with check. If you trade rooks, you're completely losing. So king goes to e4, and king goes to c7. And after king to d5, you can resign the game. You've got nothing. Everything is defended. You're up 2 pawns, 2 passed pawns. This is completely winning. Soon you will deliver check and cut this black king and make a queen and win the game. Now let me check out the standings. These are the standings. Just a second. These are the standings so far. Shamsiddin Vokhidov is first with 3.5 points, and he's playing phenomenal chess. So Arjun Ergesi is second, tied with Nodirbek, Abdusator, and Madamino with 3 points. Then we have Nodirbek Jakubov with 2.5 points, tied with Hans Mokeniman. Nicolas Teodoro with 2 points, Jan Nepomniachtchi 2 points, Mehmediaro 2 points, and Vidit Goirati with 1.5 points. So everything can still happen in this tournament. I'm going to cover more games, and hopefully, if you guys have an interesting game of your own, you can send the game via mail. So the link is in the description. Check it out, and I may cover your game on my next chess video. Stay tuned, we'll see you soon, and goodbye.